Hey guys, so this presentation is on how to ask good questions. So one of the big things is, if you may end up running into certain difficulties or what have you throughout the course. And I just want to make sure you are completely up to snuff and how to kind of get the most out of the support team and be able to ask them good questions. So, whether you are asking questions of our support people, whether you are asking questions of other members of this program, or whether you're asking questions of people in forums, or asking them of me on my YouTube videos, or whether you're asking questions on, as I said, I do a lot of YouTube videos, or maybe you're asking questions of other people on Facebook, other people doing online marketing on Facebook or what have you. You want to be able to ask good questions that you're going to get good answers to. Because remember, if you ask bad questions, you won't get good answers. So examples, just to give you some real quick examples, I have a lot of people say, ask me, they just send me emails or send me messages saying, how do I get rich? So if you just ask me, how do I get rich? That's not a very good question. That's like, if you went up to Bill Gates and you said, hey, how do you make me rich, or something like that, he's not going to help you. It's a horrible question. There's no good answer to that, and it's not going to help you. So you want to ask good questions, and I'll show you how to ask good questions. Other questions I get from people that are bad are like, why isn't this working? And there's a lot of problems with saying, why isn't this working? Can you answer that? I can't answer that. You have to have more context. So the first thing here is give context. To ask a good question, you want to describe the problem, you want to describe the business, and you want to describe your role in solving the problem. Now, if somebody said, why isn't my website working? That isn't enough information. And if, I say, oh, well, there's a PHP error and you need to delete a line of code, if they don't have access to do that, well, they can't really fix the problem. So you have to have full context into a question. Just as a little side note, I've really, one of my best skills, I would say, that's helped me out the most is, I'm not the most knowledgeable person by any means in many areas, most things, but I do pride myself. The one thing I'm not humble about is I pride myself on asking good questions. I'm always, everybody I meet, if I meet, when I meet you, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I always ask everybody who I meet or I come across a lot of questions because I prefer, one, it's easier to have other people talk, and the second thing is you get good information. If I meet somebody successful, I ask them a lot of questions, and if I meet somebody unsuccessful, I also ask them a lot of questions because I want to, I ask questions to understand whether, why they are in the place they are. So, any information that's necessary, maybe what you've tried to do to solve the problem, or what you haven't tried to do to solve the problem, or what you believe can solve the problem, is important. If the answer has to ask for clarification, you're not asking a good question. So if I have to if somebody says, why doesn't my website work, and I have to say, oh, what website? What are you talking about? What's the error message? What platform is it hosted on? Have you talked to your hosting company about this? If I have to ask you all those questions, then it's not a good question because you didn't be clear. You didn't give context for the problem when you asked the question. A good question, you provide a lot of context. Because otherwise it's just a long back and forth process that possibly nobody can help with, and it wastes both people's time. If you really want a question answered, give context. And this may seem obvious, but ask a question you want answered. And remember, if it's lots of people, some people just want to talk. I know this seems so stupidly obvious, but lots of people just want to talk. Lots of people just, they're frustrated or they're angry and they just want to ramble on about some story because, they don't really want the answer. They just want to talk about something. An example of this is, I have people at, some of the live events I've done or, online that will just continue to ramble on and say, hey, I'm from Hawaii and I've been doing online marketing and I just want to, I've been trying a lot of things and trying to make things work and I haven't been able to find it yet, but I really like what you're doing and, and I say, okay, what's your question, sir? And they say, well, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to talk. So if you're asking somebody a question, don't ramble on, just ask a question. So, don't be the person that just rambles on when you have the opportunity to ask a question. And, just again, to give context for this entire presentation, being successful in online marketing, there's going to be a lot of stuff you need to learn. And you're probably going to have questions along the way. In fact, I can guarantee you'll have questions along the way. So you're going to have a lot of questions along the way, hopefully, if you're a very focused learner. So you should make sure that you have good questions to ask so that you can get those answers. Also, be specific. If you want a specific answer, be specific. If you ask me, how do I become rich? I'd say, my answer would be something like, that's a very non-specific question. And my answer would be similarly non-specific. I'd say find somebody who's rich and follow them exactly. Do exactly what they say. That's all I'd say. You said, how do I become rich? You're going to get a non-specific answer. And that might be what you're looking for. If you say, why doesn't my website work? It's, I could give a similarly non-specific answer. I'd say, because there's some sort of programming error. And, maybe that would leave you frustrated. So don't be frustrated if you ask a broad question, you get a broad answer. Does that make sense? So again, if you want to get a specific answer, ask a specific question. Other questions that might be broad would be, how do I start a business? Well, you might get an answer such as, file, go to LegalZoom and start a corporation. Or go to your local court and file up for a business license. That's a broad question. It's a broad answer. So make sure you're specific in your questions if you want specific answers. And most people, what happens is they ask broad questions, but they really want a specific answer. So keep that in mind. This sounds obvious, but you would be actually surprised at how many people ask me questions on a daily basis and they don't get what they want and they're frustrated. Another thing is, this is important, and this goes a lot deep into psychology, is use presuppositions. And this is key. This is probably one of the most key things to this entire talk. So don't ask a question such as, why doesn't this work? Instead, ask questions such as, how can I make this work? Or questions along the lines of, how do I make this work? So always assume it can be done. So an example of that would be something like, if you laid out your ads that you're running, or you showed me your website, you showed me your advertisement, and you say, hey, I get 100 visitors per day to my website. How do I get them to purchase? How do I get more of them to purchase to sign up for the service, or sign up for the the service or the product that you are promoting? That's a good question. How do I get them? How do I get more people to buy? How do I get more people to use my service, sign up? So that's good, because a bad version of that question is, why aren't people signing? Why aren't people are coming to my website? Why aren't more people signing up? For the affiliate program I'm promoting. It's not a good question, because you're not inferring that they should be signing up. So use presuppositions. You'll get better answers. How do I create a higher converting landing page? Here's my landing page. How do I create a higher converting landing page? Etc. You want to use presuppositions. Another thing, this is just kind of an obvious thing, but don't interrupt the answerer. You would be surprised at how many people on my webinars and live streams at my events will ask a question, then they'll interrupt me. Or I've seen many people at other events I've been to where they interrupt the person answering the question. How do you think that makes them feel? Interrupting people is rude, and it's not helpful. So you want to let people speak their piece before you interrupt them. Makes sense, right? Common courtesy, but common courtesy ain't so common anymore, so don't be that guy. Next thing is, be as brief as possible. So try not, if people don't need to understand your life story when you're asking a question, don't give them your life story. If you're trying to, if you are trying to make your website profitable or what have you, let's say one of the things you're trying to do is you're saying, how can I get more people to convert on my website? Here's my landing page. Here's my website. I'm getting 100 visitors a day. How do I make more of them purchase the product I'm promoting? That's a good question. A bad question would be if you said that and then you said, by the way, my father is in the hospital, and I really need this. I really need this money to make it work, and I'm eager, and I'm willing to do anything I need to do. Just let me know what I need to do, and I have a really powerful internet connection, and I have all and on and on and on. None of that information, the rest of that information is relevant towards getting the answer you want. None of that information is going to help the person answering your question tell you how to make your website convert better. So be as brief as possible, because otherwise you're just going to waste many people's time. So stick to the point. Sounds obvious. Another thing is, be as neutral as possible. So if you ask a question like, why doesn't this work? What you're doing is you're actually assuming a particular answer. You're saying, why doesn't this work? And you're assuming that it doesn't work. And you're also just assuming that it might not work in general. So don't do that. Don't assume a particular answer, because that's going to hold you back. And that's going to hold you back because ultimately you're holding yourself back mentally, as well as you're assuming a negative answer. So I don't even like answering those questions in the first place, because usually what those sorts of questions mean is that the person is already in, they're already assuming a particular answer. I can't give a good answer to a question where the person asking the question is not open to receiving an answer. So what I do is I simply don't answer many of those questions, and I say, look, you need to check your mindset before you ask a question next time, because you're not ready for the answer I would give you. Even if I did waste my breath answering your question, you wouldn't like the answer anyways. You would just continue to do your own thing. And lots of people, this goes back to ask a question you want answered. If you already think you know the answer to the question, don't ask it. Lots of people ask questions where they already believe, they're so set in their beliefs about, one way or another, that they don't even, I could give them a great answer to their question, but they won't care. They already believe things are one way, and they're not going to change. So it's good for nobody. And the last thing is, don't ask yes or no questions. So if you say, okay, if you want a good answer, Generally, you're not going to get a good answer from a yes or no question. Generally, if you have a question, you're going to want to understand the context, why somebody's answering a certain way. So yes or no questions aren't going to bring you closer to achieving your goals of financial freedom, location freedom, time freedom. So I hope that's been helpful, and I hope this helps you in asking better questions when they come up. Awesome.